think.
We'd love to hear from you.
Just go to tinyurl.com/Beth Doug.
Love from us to you.
Bye for now.
Dad, you remember Mensa?
Yeah,
You're smarty pants.
that's what they say,
That engineering blood.
I guess.
Hey,
Red Cross Mensa.
Lucy, do you have your YouTube up?
I do.
Be sure you mute it,
On what?
because you'll get a double sound then if you don't.
Oh, right.
So make sure the YouTube is muted too.
I'm just going to stop it. You're right.
And now here are your co-hosts, Lucinda Laughing Eagle and the paranormal professor himself, Dr. Bruce.
Hey, thank you, Scotty Z, and welcome to Timeless Esoterica, where we talk about almost anything you can think of. We bring up the weird, the unusual, the hidden history. We talk about ghosts, aliens, everything, just about everything. I have my resident alien with me here, which is very appropriate for tonight. So yeah, thank you, Scotty Z. And I'm going to let my co-host, Lucinda Laughing Eagle, go ahead and introduce our guest for the evening.
Hi, everybody. So we have a really fun and sweet and interesting person on the show tonight. I met Deb Kauble. Deb, I don't even know if you remember this. Okay, so 2016, early 2016 is when I first met Yvonne Smith. And she had told me about an event that was happening on October 1st of that year. So it's October 1st, 2016. I really don't know too much about anything about the UFO world. And I go to this event. I know that I think all these great people were going to be there. And in the lineup was Deb Kauble. And if you don't recognize the name, Deb is the subject of Bud Hopkins' 1987 book, Intruders, which here, you see this? For people watching the video, here I'm showing the cover. And it's all about Deb's, well, a woman named Kathy Davis, I'll say, who had these insane UFO experiences. And it turns out Deb is the lady, right? So at the conference, we find out that, you know, the lady, the subject of Bud Hopkins' book is going to be there and talk. So I'm really excited to meet her, and I want to see kind of what's going on. I had not read the book at the time, but I had seen the CBS did like a mini series in 92, and I wanted to meet the lady, right? So I'm at the conference, and I don't really know a lot of people, and so I'm sitting with Yvonne and Deb, and the three of us were having lunch together. Deb, I don't know if you remember this. And the thing is, all we talked about was our dogs.
That sounds about right.
I think, like, I didn't ask you any kind of, like, paranormal UFO questions because, of course, if anyone knows Yvonne Smith, she loves her animals. I'm a total animal person. I was pre-vet in college, and Deb is an animal person. So what do? We talk the whole time about our dogs, and then next thing you know, we have to go move on because there's a new speaker, and that was how I met Deb.
Yeah. I love dogs. I'm a dog lover for sure.
Yep, me too.
I mean, I love all animals, but dogs I'm particularly fond of.
So I didn't even get to ask you any of the, UFO paranormal questions that I had because we just got totally side railed with dog talk. But that is our guest. So now we get to have that conversation real time, I guess, Deb, right?
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
All these years later, and so many different developments. So Bruce, I'll let you ask your Bruce question.
Yeah, okay. I always start off, because I'm a historian, I like to start with the beginning. So, Deb, can you tell us where you were born, where you grew up, and what led you to this paranormal UFO life, do you think, that maybe started earlier? So that's what we want to know.
Okay. Well, I was born in Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm a Hoosier. A long, long time ago. And my whole life, I mean, we had weird things happen around me my whole life. And I didn't really realize they were weird until I became an adult. I guess what people would call paranormal stuff. Okay, well, even before I was born, my mom had my sister. And then they tried to have a baby for 11 years and couldn't, and didn't think they were going to have any more kids. So they moved to this house on Michigan Street in a neighborhood where the neighbors like to climb up on their roofs at night to look at the UFOs, which this is what my parents told us. And then 6 months later, I was conceived, and then I was born, and then my brother came 14 months after me, and my little sister came 14 months after him. So, and then, my earliest memory is being shoved into my mom's attic door in the bedroom. She was hiding me from somebody that was trying to get me. And I was really little. I don't remember anything else other than that. And then just weird stuff happening my whole life. When I can remember when I was, I was really attached to my older sister, who also had UFO experience that's documented a little bit in Intruders and more in our second book. But I mean, she was, almost 12 when I was 1, and she went to spend the night at the neighbor's house, and I had this dream that I was I floated out of my body and floated down to the neighbor's house and floated in the bedroom window where her and her friend were listening to records and rolling their hair in orange juice cans. That's what you did in the 60s. And then I got scared because all of a sudden I realized I couldn't get back. I was afraid I wouldn't be able to get back home and back into my body. And I mean, I think I was probably I was in kindergarten. So, but anyway, so I was raised in a family that was open-minded, and like I said, we had a lot of weird stuff go on, and I thought it was normal for the longest time. And I always said when I went to school and I started telling my friends about things and realized it wasn't normal, I stopped telling them. I thought everybody saw these things or had these little weird things happen, and I found out that wasn't quite right. And what finally brought me forward into the public eye was the June 30, 1983 thing that happened in my parents' backyard that I wrote Bud Hopkins about. And, he contacted me and started the investigation on that incident. And then it kind of just, it's like, yeah, he had kind
there
of
it is.
when he came to the house the first time from New York, I don't think he realized just how deep it was going to get. How
he didn't see the rabbit hole that was coming.
Right. I mean, yeah. I mean, he was already coming in to look at something extraordinary, and then well, the rest is kind of history in the UFO world, I guess.
You know what's interesting? We were talking a little bit before the show. It seems like all of us have this Yvonne connection,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, and of course, Yvonne Smith, who is a hypnotherapist and the president of CERO, the Close Encounter Resource Organization, used to be called Research Organization. She's the president of that, and she's has connected all these interesting people around the world, not just here in the United States, but I think there's also a branch in France too, Syro.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you call it a branch, but a division, or I don't know, whatever you call it, Syro International. But Lucy was talking about how that's how she met you, is through Yvonne, right? Wasn't that it, Lucy?
Yeah.
So I guess Yvonne is, for our purposes tonight, is kind of our Kevin Bacon. I like to use that Kevin Bacon analogy. We're all connected through Yvonne. So anyway, Lucy, go ahead. I have a lot of other questions, but I don't want to hog your time.
I don't know. I think it's interesting that we all have this background where these we come from families that were really kind of open to this, and and we were not shamed or told it was wrong at that early age. And I just think that's kind of interesting for a lot of experiencers. Okay, so maybe I'm digging into this too early, Deb, but here's my burning question that I'm going to ask right off the bat. You, Whitley Strieber, Travis Walton, there's a lot of people that had very seemingly frightening experiences early on and have now all kind of come to this collective conclusion that's different from how it started. So I just kind of want to get your thoughts on what you've learned so far, because obviously, you know, when you experience something like this, you do your research, right? Because human nature, right? Like, what the heck just happened? Has it happened to anybody else? Like, you want to know and get some meaning out of it. And so I know you've had a very long journey, including your book. Here, this is the second book. People, look, this is Abducted, and you wrote this with your sister.
Yeah.
Right. So this book is kind of, whereas Intruders is like Bud Hopkins' experience with your story, this is your kind of firsthand experience and a little more detailed and personal, right? And so what was the leap from like Bud's book to this book to where you are now? Because it seems to be like different, like full chapters, right? You're not that person in Bud's book anymore. And are you even this lady anymore? I don't think you are, right?
That's exactly why I felt so driven to do the revised edition, which is turning out to going to be a whole new book. Yes, I mean, I've morphed. I mean, when I met Bud, I was terrified. I was a young single mother, and I was had this traumatic experience and others traumatic experiences that I had kind of socked away, and it was all starting to come out like somebody pulled the finger out of the dam. Mm-hmm. And I was scared. I thought I was having a nervous breakdown. PTSD, having all these strange dreams and trying to interpret all this data, this information is coming at me from everywhere. That's when the book my book was born, because I started to write everything down and draw pictures when I saw these visions, and when I had these words and thoughts come in my head, I would write them down. That's what ended up being my book, Abducted. It was the story of what happened in June of '83, and then how I dealt with it. And Bud, God bless him, I give him credit for probably saving my life. I mean, because at that point I was a hot mess, and I'm sure I had a nervous breakdown.
Oh, rightly so.
but he, he took me under his wing, and I was fortunate. I was blessed because my whole family was supportive of me, and they'd seen the things that I'd seen and been through things with me. It wasn't just me. If it had always been just me, I would the first thing I would think would be, I'm crazy, and give me a pill. I'm okay. If you tell me I'm crazy, they make pills for that, so it'll go away. But my whole family and neighbors and friends and my boss at work, they all witnessed these weird things. So I was lucky that I had support the way I had, because most people that see things that I've seen don't. And so Bud started the healing with me, and then like you said, what I tend to do when something scares me is I try to learn everything about it that I can. I think because that Mensa thing, knowledge is power. And the more I felt that I learned, the more powerful I was to myself, you know what I mean? And I had less fear. One of the things that I kept being told over and over in my head by whatever this was that fear slowed down the process of me, evolving.
That evolution, your evolutionary process.
My fear would slow things down, so I had to overcome that. And that was up to me, and somehow I managed to do it to the most part. I still get shocked if something happens abruptly and I'm not ready for it. It's shocking to me, but I don't have that terror that I used to have. I've evolved from that. What I've gone through has made me stronger and smarter, and I've been fortunate enough to be able to go around and talk about it a lot. And I think talking about traumatic things helps you to put them in the proper perspective in your head so that you can function. And also met thousands of people just like me who've had sometimes almost creepily the same kind of experiences, seen the same things I've seen. So I mean, there's power in numbers. There's strength in knowledge and power in numbers. So and I'm definitely not. Even the book. When I went to edit and go through my book.
Okay, wait. Let me pause there, because I realized for the radio listeners, I didn't say the name of the book. Okay, so radio folks. It's Deb's book is called Abducted, The Story of Intruders Continues. I'm holding it up on the YouTube so that you can check it out. And then the author is Debbie Jordan and Kathy Mitchell. I just want to get that out there.
Yeah, Jordan I've become Kauble since then. So,
yes.
But so even when I went to re-edit the original files for this book that I'm working on now, or that I've just completed now, and I had to go, obviously I had to reread every chapter, because it's weird. When I wrote that book, it was written in an old Works for Windows program that doesn't exist anymore, and I don't know how on earth that I managed to save it off on first I saved it on 5.5-inch floppies, and then we transferred it to a CD-ROM, and then the tornado came and everything got tore up. But when I stuck a CD-ROM into the computer, it actually was still there, but it was a jumbled up mess. And it took 2.5 years to reformat it so that it made sense. And in that process, I, obviously reread the whole thing, and I thought to myself, good God, I can't even believe that I wrote it. Some of the things I wrote now in retrospect, I realize so much more now. And that's when I got to thinking, after a few years of this, I really need to do a revised edition. And then there was other things that had happened since then that I felt were important, although on a different level, and more paranormal stuff rather than UFO stuff, which I think is all somehow interconnected. And that's when I decided to go ahead and just do this second book for me, that will show even more progression in my transformation. I'm 61 years old now, and I've reached a point in my life where I've got a lot to still learn and a lot of growing to do, but I'm really in a good place in a lot of ways. And I want people that have been through what I went through to understand they can not only get through it, but they can become a better human being and stronger because of it and with it and through it.
Hey, Deb, can you, for those folks who may not be familiar with your story, could you just quickly, from 1983, give us a snapshot of what that was? I know it's a big story, but and then as a follow-up to that, the TV show experience, because you were on a lot of different shows, and what was that like, telling this this very traumatic thing on in those kind of venues? So yeah.
Well, I was living with my mom and dad in 1983. I was a single mom with 2 little kids, and one night I had gone to a neighbor's house to cut out patterns for her. She was a seamstress, made costumes, and she paid me extra money to cut patterns out, and I was trying to help my parents because they were helping me. So anyway, something happened in the backyard that night that it left a mark in the yard that lasted 2.5 years, and snow melted off of it that winter. It was a round circle with a long, perfect streak of like 49 feet that ended in a perfect arch, like a circle.
There's pictures in the book.
There's pictures in the book of it, yeah.
There's pictures in the book. If you're on YouTube, you're going to see these pictures. That's the picture in the book. Can you see that?
Snow melted off that for like 2 years, and it took about 4 or 5 years for the grass to actually grow back into where the area was. And the grass that grew back for several years after that was thick and kind of purplish green. It was a different texture. Yeah, but
so we're not talking crop circle. Like things grow better. We're talking like probably some crazy toxic stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, Bud, they did a soil sample months after the fact, and there was like no life in it, not even like bacterial or anything in the soil. You could drop a chunk of this dirt in water and leave it there for 24 hours, and it would be a chunk of dirt the next day. It wouldn't absorb any water at all.
Wow.
But when I was in the back that night, I saw a craft, which we call it a craft. I don't know what it was because it wasn't very big. It was about the size of Mom's pump house for her swimming pool. So maybe like 8 feet, 9 feet tall, shaped like an egg. And it was in the yard, and I was probably standing about 20 feet from it when I realized it was there. At first, I got called back home because Mom saw a ball of light in the yard, which she didn't tell me that at the time. She just wanted me to come home. She didn't remember she'd seen this ball of light for like a week. Anyway, I went back home, was looking around for prowlers. I wasn't thinking about UFOs or aliens. I was thinking of somebody going to break in my mom's house with my kids and her in there. And so I'm walking around with an unloaded shotgun in the backyard trying to see if I can find somebody. And I go in the garage that's attached to the side of the house. And while I'm in the garage, all of a sudden I feel like I'm on fire. It's like I can feel every single molecule of my body vibrate. And I feel like my whole body's on fire. And I think, oh my God, I got to get out of here right now. And as I hit the doorway, something hit me in the chest, right in the chest, like a ball of light. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I'm going to die. This is how it feels to die. I could feel everything vibrate. The light was so bright that I know my eyes were closed, but I could still see it. Mm-hmm. It permeated everything about me. And then it seemed like time stopped for a second. When that happened, time just kind of stopped. It couldn't have lasted very long. I don't think I would have survived it, but something poked me in the ear. After the vibrating and the brightness waned, I felt something poke me in the ear. And I heard a disembodied voice say, it was unfortunate that I had to feel pain. So whatever happened to me was not intentional. It was like a byproduct of whatever they did or whatever was going on. And then I was out in the yard more, and I saw these 6 little figures, which I thought were kids. in my parents' backyard, milling about. And then all of a sudden they kind of lined up and they slid down to my left towards me. And that's when I saw that egg-shaped thing. And I'm like, holy shit. I didn't want to take my eyes off of it, but I didn't want to look at it. That's how terrifying it was. And I thought, I got to see where it is. If it comes closer to me, I'm about to freak out, you know. And then I saw this ball of light in front of me that was like about the size of a basketball. It went up and down real slow. And I felt like it was looking at me. For some reason, I felt as if this ball of light was checking me out. And then as quickly as all that happened, it was over. I still don't remember probably the majority of that night, because Bud figured that there was about an hour and 15 minutes of missing time, and I only remember that pretty much. I had some dreams later, but this is actually what I remember. This was no hypnotherapy to try to remember it or any of that. This just came back naturally.
Conscious memory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, my Bud blocked it.
What was the ball of light?
What was it?
What color was the ball of light?
Oh, yeah.
White.
And
The whitest light I've ever seen.
And the egg craft thingy, was it lit or was it?
It was dark. I mean, I could tell it was metallic, but it was it only had a couple of balls of light around the middle of it, like the same size, like basketball size balls of light. And you know, when all those little people slid down in there and went into that thing, there's no way in hell that thing's flying anywhere, even with 6 little people in it.
Right.
You know what I mean? We called it a ship. I called it a ship. I don't know what you call it. It would maybe more like some kind of a machine or a portal or something like that, because I just can't see anybody flying any distance in that little tiny thing. But this is what I remember seeing. So
so then you have to go on national TV and tell this story. Tell us about that experience. I know you've been on big shows. I mean, really, yeah.
Yeah, I was on Oprah Winfrey when she was AM Chicago, and I was on the Deanie Petty. Deanie Petty is like the Oprah Winfrey of Canada.
Right.
And Danny Bonaducci, Maury Povich, you know, all the ones people make fun of and laugh at. But you know what? And I was terrified. The very first time I ever spoke in public for Bud was in front of a group of researchers, you know, at some conference. And I walked up on the stage and I was shaking so hard that I couldn't swallow. And I stood there for the longest time after the applause stopped. And I looked up and I remember looking at these people and I just said, okay, I'm terrified. I'm feeling I'm about to faint right now. So if I sound crazy or I mess up my words, please just be patient with me because I'm really scared. And, you know, I was afraid. I was embarrassed because I knew what I was about ready to tell these people and on the TV show sounds crazy. If I hadn't seen it and lived it, I would doubt it myself. But it is what it is. And so, I at first, when Bud wanted to write a book, which led to all the interviews and whatnot, I'm like, I don't know, you know, and my family talked about it. My older sister, she's like, I'm not going on TV and talking about her little thing in 65 with the bingo game. And I ended up being the spokesperson for the family. So I took one for the team. That's what my dad said. I went out there and I made an ass out of myself, I suppose, or that's what I felt like I was doing in the name of science and humanity. I mean, I felt it almost like it was my duty that I was born because this is what I was supposed to do. This is why I got born.
And you didn't have this wasn't just a story you were telling. There were legitimate after effects, like the
Absolutely.
grass that could be tested. There was your vision, which you didn't but like your eyes got shot from that light, you know?
Yes.
They said, what did that ER doctor tell you? Like you've been staring open-eyed at a welding.
He said, have you looked into the arc of a welder's torch? And I looked at him like, what?
Yeah.
Why would I do that? No. I mean, my eyes were wrecked. I was sick for an entire year after that. My hair got thin. It used to be naturally curly, not no more. My fingernails got all crazy and wavy. I got swollen glands. I ran fevers for no reason. I'd break out in rashes. I started having real bad irregular heartbeats, lots of panic attacks, and the eyes, of course, were destroyed.
And you had none of these symptoms before that event?
Not to that, no.
Right.
No. I mean, my immune system was shot for that first year after this. Everything that came to town, I got. So I was sick constantly. And my eyes were still, I was diagnosed with cataracts in my 30s. I finally lost my lenses when I hit 50. And so I have implants. And I also was diagnosed with macular degeneration in my 30s. So, and I'm losing my vision slowly. I will probably go blind. That's another reason I wanted to get this book written before my mind went, because my dad had dementia and my sister's had a bunch of strokes now and she has dementia. And I'm like, what if I have dementia and I lose all this in here before I get it out? You know, what if I go blind and I can't see to type? That's why I felt urgent, you know, like, so, but yeah, that I blame that June 30, 1983 for my eyes being so horrible.
I mean, it sounds like it, especially if you don't have, those are all conditions that usually there's a family history or something, you know what I mean? And for you to just spontaneously come out with that stuff. So, I mean, it's terrible, but in a way, it's kind of empowering when you have to get up in front of a bunch of strangers and say, listen, this is not something I want to believe in either. It's happened and here's the proof, right? I'm wondering at this time, because Communion came out in what, 87, 88 or something?
Right about the same time in truth.
About the same time. Mm-hmm. So you're kind of, so this is like a little bit of a pop culture kind of moment where this subject is being discussed and you're kind of in that circuit. But I know Whitley took a lot of well, he was made fun of a lot and he was very much bullied in that and shamed for some reason because he's a victim of something. And it was a lot of victim shaming with Whitley. You didn't get any of that backlash, did you?
I got some, but not like he did. Like I said, okay. I feel like I was blessed because I had, my family, my neighbors, my friends, all stood by me because they all witnessed these various things that happened too. You know, my mom was there that night in June. So, I mean, Whitley he got it worse than I did for sure. Of course, I had people that came at me and I'm like, you know what? Phil Klass was a perfect example. He wrote some terrible things in some of his books about me and my mother. So I encountered him at a UFO conference in Pensacola one year, and I chased him around for like half a day. And every time he saw me, he ran the other way. And I finally got him cornered with a bunch of people around him. And I said, hey, why did you write such nasty things about my mom and me? You don't know me. You've never talked to me. I've never met you. If you want to know something, just ask me. I would be happy to sit down and talk to you and answer your questions if you want to. I will tell you what I know, and then I will tell you what my opinion is on some things. But, you'll have to figure out what you believe on your own. But I said, it's not fair that you write all that crap about my mom and I, and you don't even know us. What kind of research is that? And, the dude... gave me the next day when I woke up in front of my hotel room door, there was a stack of books, and it was every book that man ever wrote. And he personally inscribed every single one of them to me and wrote nice things in them. And one of them was like, oh, your mom raised you right and all this other crap. And I'm like, what the hell? What the hell?
Oh, I wish that happened in the age of like cell phones and Twitter, so that people would just be recording it right there and then posting it live.
I know. Yeah, no, this was in the 90s.
Before all that.
Before all that. But I mean, because that's the way I am. I will tell you what I remember. I'll tell you what I know to be fact. And then I'll tell you things that I think are my opinion. That doesn't mean it's right, but it's just my gut. But you got to figure out for yourself what of this you want to believe. I mean, I believe the world is nothing like we assume it is around us. I think there's a lot of stuff going on around us right now that we can't even see. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so now you're doing that circuit, and all this time, your sister's just like, I'm not saying a thing. But then all of a sudden, you guys write this second book. So how did you have to convince her, or did she just decide I'm in? Or how did that work?
No, the one that her and I wrote, that one, Abducted, I actually had it completely finished and had written it just myself.
Okay.
And her and my mom came to me and they're like, she wants to put her stuff in there too. And I'm like, no, because it's already done. No, they argued with me about it. They wanted her, I'm like, give it to me. And it was all handwritten in a spiral bound notebook. So I had to go back and I had to figure out a way to incorporate her stuff and my stuff and put it together so it would work and would make sense, and flow. And that's when I came up with the alternating chapters. And it was the easiest way. Plus I had to type all her stuff in because she wrote it all in pencil in a spiral notebook. So, but I did. And
you sound like a little sister.
I was a little bit annoyed, but I did it. I mean, I felt guilty because originally I threw her under the bus when I wrote to Bud, because the first thing I started out with in the letter I wrote to Bud in the beginning was, my sister had this event happen in 1965 when she was taking my mom to the bingo game, so I told her, and I didn't ask her permission to tell him. So I kind of threw her under the bus. And then at the very end of my letter, I said, oh, and by the way, this happened about a month ago, and all these pictures of the backyard, And so I felt kind of guilty about that. So I'm like, all right. Now this revision that I've done, that is just about, I've finished writing it. I've sent it to Robbie Graham at August Night Press, and he's currently editing it and helping me with the flow and whatnot. But I think that's who's going to publish it. What happened now in this book, it was originally going to be a revised edition. Mm-hmm. And what I ended up doing was I had to leave my sister's chapters out this time. My sister's had multiple strokes. She's dementia. She's in a nursing home. She doesn't know who we are or anything like that. Mm-hmm. She hasn't had, as far as I know, she hasn't had any experiences for years, and she can't add anything to it at this point. So I just left her stuff out and went ahead with the original format that the book was supposed to be in to begin with, and then added a whole bunch of stuff to it, and then more chapters at the end. So that's how this one is going to be, this new one. That's why I'm going to have a new title. It's going to have the old title in it, but it's going to have a new title too, if that makes any sense at all.
Sure.
It will eventually. I kind of feel like my whole life has been kind of guided. The universe has kind of put me where I needed to be with who I need to be with, and kind of helped me do what I needed to do, even when I wasn't fully realizing what was going on. So it'll all work out.
Hey, Deb, I wanted to circle back to, if I heard correctly, you said that before any of these experiences you had, when you're growing up, you had neighbors that would be watching for UFOs on their roof. Is that before you had any experiences, right?
That's when I was a little kid. Yes, this was in the late 50s and early 60s, when I was just born and I was a little kid. This was stories my parents would tell, and my dad had a ham radio antenna up against the house that you could
Mhm.
climb up. So he would climb up on the roof, and the neighbor guy across the street, and the guy next door, and they'd have their lawn chairs on the roof. And they would regularly watch for UFOs. Apparently they saw things over there on the east side of Indianapolis. So
It's interesting to me. I wonder if there's a connection, a family, Yvonne Smith always talks about a family connection. If it goes back even further than that, what compelled them to do that, and then how it impacted you and maybe set you up for your experience.
Right.
And that's just why I wanted to circle back to that. I think that's just fascinating for myself, I had an interest in space very early on, which wasn't necessarily unusual, because I grew up with John Glenn and then the Apollo program, so that was exciting to everybody, not just me. But I had kind of a very interesting, unique perspective on it, I think, that I didn't even realize. And I ended up being a pilot, which I always wanted to do. And well, actually, I wanted to be an astronaut, but being a pilot's good enough. So
I wanted to be an astronaut, but I was a girl, so back then, that didn't happen.
That's true. Now half the astronauts are girls, I think.
Yeah.
So. There was one other thing I wanted to say, because our time goes so quickly. If you don't mind, Lucy, I wanted to ask her about your. Well, I do have a final question, but I want to save that for the very end. It's kind of a, kind of take us out kind of question. Your paranormal experiences, other than alien experiences or other world experiences you've recorded EVPs, electronic voice phenomena. People might be familiar with that. Any ghost sightings or apparitions or any of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I got involved back in 2005 with a paranormal group out of Indianapolis, and then we did a lot of private investigations and things like that. And then I broke off with them and started my own group with a couple of. I wanted a more smaller, intimate group, and we did. I've gotten a video recording in a gal's house of a full body apparition that started to come around the corner and through the doorway and realized we were there and backed up. And I have the video recording of that. I've got tons of EVPs. They used to call me the antenna. I don't know why. Sometimes the EVPs would only be recorded on my recorder, but the video, did you say I know why? It's like we had a video. We had one time. It's a private family. They had complained about a little girl running up and down the hall all the time, and we had the video camera with audio in this living room, in the family room, and then my audio recorder was on the table, on the coffee table. Nobody was in the house. Our base station was out in the garage. The family was not there. Their family dog was wandering around. So the dog walks past my recorder on the table, and you see in the video the dog walk by. Now, you don't hear it on the camera's audio, but on my recorder, you hear as clear as a bell a little girl's voice say, "Hi, Ginger." And the dog's name was Ginger. I mean, and it is like, it sounds
That's
like
awesome.
a little kid was in there in the room. It's not like that stuff you see on the paranormal TV shows. This was like really good.
Clear as a bell. Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, we do have a question from an audience member. Emma asks. She says, "This is very interesting. Thank you for sharing your story." She asks, "Well, have you had any other paranormal experiences since then? I guess since the original one, which you have shared now. But how many other UFO type experiences have you had since that original one?"
Since the 83 one, I really haven't had that many UFO. Like, I've seen lights in the sky. I saw a black triangle in the sky down in Lucky Point, Indiana, with about 8 other people. And it was just a very quiet, large, low black triangle. I saw a black triangle with lights on the bottom of it go over my mom and dad's house, and my mom saw it as well. And that was like the year and a half after the '83 incident, I think. And then here recently in Kokomo, where I'm at, we had the Kokomo boom, and right prior to that, we had a lot of what they call orange ball of light sightings, and I personally had multiple orange ball of light sightings that made me feel really weird and creeped out. I don't know why. So yeah, I still continue to have, and I have. It seems to have progressed. The experiences that I have and the contact that I seem to have, if that's what you want to call it, have like transformed into something more in the mind rather than in the physical world. I mean, I'm having dreams, lucid dreams, vivid dreams, and like of these things that come and visit me. Like this one thing looked like a ghost hanging up in the corner. I felt like it was trying to communicate to me in some way. So yeah, a lot of weird things, not all UFO related, but still a lot of high strangeness in my world.
Very cool. And thank you for your question, Emma. It's nice when we get audience questions. So.
Yeah.
Well, and traditional UFO things, unidentified flying objects, you probably have not, okay, you've had the ones you've mentioned, but you've still continued to have a lot of contact. I mean, it's just that it almost seems like the UFO sightings are a little bit of your introduction, or the general population, right? Like, it seems to start with people seeing something weird, and then they might have an experience like a night or two later, or they'll have a weird dream or something, and that like kind of like gets the ball rolling, right? And
exactly, yeah.
And then it starts to progress into like a relationship that changes. It's almost like I try to say, like, they want to interact with people, but they don't want to like intercede, and they don't want to push you. And I say this knowing that people have like these really horrific abduction experiences, but it's almost like a weird kind of initiation. Like, okay, I'm going to do this and see how you react. And if you want to push it a little further, then we'll give you this and this. And then at some point it just becomes this kind of telepathic, sixth sense, intuitive kind of relationship, right?
I feel like the experiences start off, like you said, more physical, more in the physical world, and it has even some unintended after effects, I think, honestly. But also, I think that somehow it rewires my brain, and as here recently, and I've learned more and more about EMDR therapy because I've been going through it for my PTSD, for other life things. I know the brain can be rewired, and I mean, maybe it's even more intense than we know, because I feel like sometimes I think that the contact I had early on was to facilitate this later contact on a different level, which doesn't necessarily involve the physical world. It's like the switch got flipped, and once that switch is flipped, you can't ever turn it off, and you can't go back.
That is so fast. It's like the nuts and bolts stuff is the introduction, and then that just blows you away and opens you up and transforms you, and then now they have a pathway. Now they have a shortcut, so they don't have to do all the smoke and mirrors or all the fancy stuff. It's there if you want to see it, or if you need to see it. But if you don't need to see it, that it's real. So why do that? Why manifest all that when they can just go take a shortcut right in to your dreams or whatever? I mean, to me, that's fascinating. That's fascinating.
It's a part of who I am at this point.
Yeah.
I am not. I always said June 30, 1983, Debbie died. And this person was born, and I've been growing ever since. Like Debbie 2.0, I guess. I don't know.
That was your shamanic initiation.
Yeah.
Hey, can I sneak in another question, Lucy, from a listener?
All right, good.
Yeah, just real quick. Okay, Lambert is asking. Lambert, yay, hi Lambert, is asking Deb, I was wondering the anomaly the UFO left behind that night, did it seem to affect life around it more biologically, or I think it's etherically? It sounded like it was biological, that it affected the, you said the grass and the dirt and all that stuff. I'm not sure what he meant by etherically. Maybe he means like, I don't know.
Energetically, like, could it have caused some sort of portal, right? Or
yeah, maybe that's what he meant. Yeah, I think that's what he meant.
Because it could be a twofer, right?
Yes,
like exactly. I said, I don't believe that what I saw was an actual extraterrestrial craft that flew off into space. And there's no way all those little fellas could go in there and fly anywhere. They're still elbows to buttholes, as they say. Yeah. I mean, so, and there was a lot of, the whole swath of trees off to the side withered and died, the leaves, and the tomato plants that were just a few feet away from the end of the swath, their vines got as big around as my arm, and the tomatoes were huge. But if you went to try to eat them, they were so acidic it would take the skin off your mouth. And there were dandelions that grew out by the swimming pool that were double the size of normal dandelions. And I took pictures of it. So it had an effect. Also, Dad had there was a power line or an antenna line that came into the house from the tower that he had over there. And within that line, all of the wiring melted together in one big blob.
Wow.
And so something happened.
You have like a little Chernobyl in your backyard.
Yeah.
How do you sell that house? Okay, I'm going to ask my last question, and then I'm going to give it to Bruce. Are you guys still in that house? Like, does your mom, is that house sold?
Yes. My mom and dad passed away many years ago. And prior to my dad passing away, we sold the house. But it's funny because the girl who bought the house was actually a friend of somebody I went to high school with. Didn't know it at the time. Okay. Later on, she heard about what happened at the house. And she was like, oh, contact her for me. So they kind of got us together. And I kept in touch with her for a little while. She never had anything strange happen in that house. Nothing inside the house or outside. And, after my sisters and brother and I all moved away, we all had stuff happen in our own home. So it's like it followed us. It wasn't the house. It was us.
There's kids. Sorry.
We're having an alien attack right now.
Yeah. Or siblings.
Yeah, no, that's natural.
Yeah.
I tried to.
Hey, I got if you guys don't mind, I got kind of a philosophical question here to kind of wrap us up, because actually we only got a few minutes left. It went very fast. Deb, what do you want folks to know? Should they be afraid of the star people, the aliens, the extraterrestrials? What do you want folks to know, and should they be afraid or not?
No, I don't think they should be afraid. I think that people are scarier than what I've been dealing with. They're not the threat, we are.
Right.
But I understand the fear because I had it. I've been there. But look at me. I'm alive. Mm-hmm. I'm probably healthier now than I've ever been in my life. My eyes are kind of jacked up, but I'm still able to have a good life. Mentally, I'm doing okay, I think. So I just want the people out there that have had weird experiences to know they're not alone. Don't be afraid. Let me tell you, if they were going to take us out, they'd have done it a long time ago.
Oh, yeah.
And I also think that I don't think it's all like extraterrestrial stuff. I think that there's other life forms and that live right here with us, dimensional things, and just don't be afraid. I don't want people to be afraid, because it's going to be okay. You're going to be okay.
I think that's a really good There's a lot of terrestrial stuff we have to worry about. We have enough of that to worry about. Yeah. And I think you're right. If they wanted to do great harm to us, they would have already. And so I really don't think that's what they're about.
And I want people to know that you're capable of so much more than you're allowed to believe, that you're powerful in your own right. And you have skills and powers that you have that, you need to learn and acknowledge and understand. And I think they want us to know that too.
That we have the power within us. We have the power within us. Very good. Wow, that's a great message to end with. Now, how do people get a hold of you, Deb, if they want to get a hold of you? And maybe our engineer, Jordan, could flash it up on the screen. Oh, there it is. It looks like a website. That's
my website. And then I'm also on Facebook. If you want to look me up on Facebook, it's Deb White Kauble. White's my maiden name. So, and so I'm on Facebook too. And, my website's not really very well updated at the time, but I'm going to get it more updated. And I'll also have hopefully more ways to be able to people to get in contact with me.
And for our radio listeners, that's www.debshome.com. So DEBSHOME.com, debshome.com. Okay, let's see. I think we've run out of time. So I want to thank you, Deb, and my co-host, Lucy, and our engineer, Jordan, and Jordan Martin, and Scotty Z, our engineer in Ohio at our home station. And the theme music, I always forget to mention Roland Bashura. That theme music is so cool, and he's the one who composed that for us for the show. So I just want to say to everybody to be the light and listen to Deb's words. I thought she had a very good closing there. And I really appreciate all of you for listening and watching, and be good people. And we'll see you all next. And there's the books, Intruders, The Incredible Visitations at Copley Woods, and Abducted, the story of intruders continues. And the new book, which will be coming out.
The new one, eventually.
Yes, eventually. So stay.
Read these in the meantime.
And if you have any other questions, you can shoot us an email as well. Okay, that's it. And good night, everybody. And
good night, everybody.
We'll see you next month, the fourth Tuesday of the month. Thank you.
Thanks, Deb.
Thank you for asking.
Thank you, Debbie.
Okay.
All right, Scotty Z, thank you very much.
Thanks, Scotty.
It'll be posted tomorrow.